This is the first episode of the mother-daughter duo. I'm Mena.
I'm Rocky.
We're the mother-daughter duo.
I'm the
Pretty
daughter.
Self-explanatory. And we have Gina and Gary. They want to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Gina.
And I'm Gary, and we're with the Capstone Real Estate Group, eXp Realty.
Yeah, so we're excited to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting us.
No problem. You want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so quick backstory. Myself, I came from being a second generation custom home builder renovator. So I worked primarily north of Toronto, Ontario in the Muskokas, and worked for more of an exclusive clientele. And as I moved out of that career into real estate, moved into a place of where we wanted to be more than transactional for people. And we developed our own It's Your Move method. Is that right? So I'll have to come back to that. It's Your Move method. And what that really is geared for is people our age, Gen Xers, baby boomers that are looking at downsizing and potentially, expanding their horizons. The family side of their life is done, and they're looking at having more fun with their time.
Time to party.
Right.
I'm in that group.
So, no more snow shoveling. It's
Right.
giving that up for palm trees and sand.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, I'll say a little bit about me too.
Yeah, let's talk about what we do.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I grew up in Caledon, Ontario, Bolton, Ontario. It's about as exciting as watching paint dry. And then Mena and I came down, fell in love with Florida, looked at ROI real estate, and I thought, what am I doing in Canada? Like, it just didn't make any sense. And I remember when I met with the realtor, I said I have 3 criteria for where I want to live. 1, I want a great school for my son. 2, I want to be able to stagger home from happy hour. And 3, I want to be able to walk to the beach. Because for me, it was all about lifestyle. We raised our kids, have some great equity in some properties. We're in the latter part of our career. Time to start something new. Here we are in South Florida. Whoever would have thought we'd be here with our lovely guests talking about basically the journey that we went on ourselves. So absolutely, it's time to change lifestyle, time to, even younger people are doing it. They're starting to see that life is more than just paying a huge mortgage, shoveling snow, paying everything, half of everything you own to the government. But we'll get into that in a little bit. We are officially the mother-daughter duo, but more than that, we are from Maimone Legal. Maimone Legal is an immigration, business law, estate planning firm located in South Florida. My daughter, Mena Maimone, is the lead attorney at Maimone Legal.
At Maimone Legal, we help you move to the United States. Not only that, we have a one-stop shop set up where we help you with immigration, estate planning, and business law. We're Canadians too. We made the move. We came down on E2, F1, EB5. We know what we're doing. We can help you. And we've come here today with our friends who are going to educate you a little bit on the move, why it's worth making the move, why you should put your fears aside and trust the process and go for it. So, Gary and Gina, my name is Mena. I'm from Bolton, and I'm sick of the life. I want to move to Florida, and I own a property in the GTA. Let's talk a little bit about how you're going to help me. Why should I make this move? Why is it worth it? And what can I get for my money in the United States?
It's a great question, Mena. And it's something that a lot of Canadians, especially in provinces like Ontario and BC, are finding motivation to move because the real estate values are extremely high, and yet we're also in a declining market. So where the opportunity lies to look at things like moving into the U.S., particularly for baby boomers, Gen Xers, and even young people that are living more of a nomad lifestyle that are maybe shut out of real estate in Ontario, they can buy in the U.S. and do it quite affordably. Even with the exchange rate at, roughly $1.48 for every $1 American right now, we're going to show you guys how you can buy value through the difference in real estate values in, say, Toronto or the GTA versus, say, Florida.
Right. And, a lot of the people we talk to, they express a lot of frustration with their current lifestyle, the climate in Canada. You want to talk a little bit about that, what you've seen over the past couple years and what's kind of driven people to leave, to make the move out of Canada?
Well, I think COVID inspired a lot of change for people, especially in Canada, because we got locked down to a large degree there. And it allowed the people that, like us that got locked down, the time to really explore alternatives versus the lifestyle we had. We're also busy, generationally and as people that, often we don't get a chance to come up and look around. And I think as much as COVID wasn't a great thing, it offered an opportunity for people to reassess their life and their goals.
Right.
And, with that, what we're seeing now is people are actually saying, I don't have to chase the money anymore. There's other ways that I can go about getting quality of life. And sometimes it is cashing out of the Canadian market, right, where you maybe give up an asset if you have one there that could be worth $1.5 million, $2 million, which is your average home price now.
Right.
And you could buy it a fraction of the cost in the U.S. So it creates a great opportunity for people.
I mean, even as a young buyer, I have a lot of friends who live with their parents. They can't afford to go out on their own and buy a home. Maybe they're renting. They're going to be forever renters in the GTA because of the cost of buying their own home. And I know, coming down to Florida, there's so many opportunities to get into the market. Right, Mom?
Absolutely.
You talk about your experience of it?
Yeah, so when I moved down to Florida originally, I got my real estate license, thought I would help some friends and family, fellow Canadians who were looking to purchase. This was before COVID, so the real big influx wasn't happening yet. And as I started to explore those different markets, if you wanted to, you could buy a condo for $100,000. You're not going to be on the beach, but you can buy a single family home in a beautiful community, maybe a new community, 250, 300,000. And so when you look at the cost of housing and you look, I know you're going to get into this a little bit, and you look at the income that people are making, there's a huge disparity between the type of lifestyle you can have here. You buy something for 200 grand, you put 20% down, it's $40,000. You can get that off a credit card.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, to carry it, people talk about different expenses. At the end of the day, guys, when you get your income tax return, and the first year I got my income tax return from here, I was shocked at how little I had to give. And I remember Mena coming into my office, first year, and she said, "Oh, I got to cut a check to the IRS." I looked at it, I said, "Don't complain."
Yeah, you're like, be happy.
Be happy, smile the
Right?
whole time you're signing that check, because I told her what it would have been in Canada. She was shocked. So to me, it makes so much sense when you look at the cost of living and all the main things we do in our lives. So many people have now settled here. I haven't run into one person who said, "I made a mistake, I should go back to Canada."
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen once you've had the opportunity to live your life here,
Yeah, and we're finding with our younger generation, they're either renting or they're moving farther north. And so, they're moving up to areas like we are. So you're north of Barrie, north of somewhere else, for them to get affordable living. Because honestly, you can't buy a really nice house under $600,000. Now, when we had the hike, it was a lot higher than that, $750,000, $800,000. 800 was buying you
A shed.
A shed on the water. That was crazy. Like $1 million for a shed on the water. And I even saw a listing like that today, right? To be on Simcoe. So this is the problem we're having with our younger first-time home buyers is, trying to get them into homes that they can really afford right now.
But the problem is they have to live somewhere where there's nothing going on.
Yes, and that's the other thing. They've already got a job in the GTA, but if they want something affordable, they need to be way farther north of the GTA. So
And you bring a really valid point in that, that's one of the big differences, say, between the GTA and given almost any area in Florida where the infrastructure is far superior, it's built up far more. So if there's schooling that still needs to be considered, there's great options here. The further you go north of the GTA, that diminishes quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, you do buy value if you're looking at real estate, but you don't have all the amenities. We don't have highway systems. We don't have access to a lot of the things, hospitals, that we would have in bigger urban centers, right? So
Yeah, you become completely remote. Like at the thought of living in one of those remote areas.
Right. Compared to the lifestyle here in Fort Lauderdale.
When I was living in Canada, every 2-3 days I had to fill up my tank because everything's far.
yeah.
I
Well-
moved into Fort Lauderdale. I go through a tank a month. Like
Yeah.
everything is there. Like
and that
it's
tank of
so
gas
nice.
was also a fraction of the cost as well.
Yeah, and it's so nice. Like a mile, well, kilometer and a half. I got this. I got like everything's here. Like I couldn't even imagine, and I grew up in the country on a 10-acre farm with my parents. You know what I think it comes down to, guys? When you live your life, you're in the wheel, you go to work. Before you know it, a year's past, 2 years, 5 years.
Yep.
And you're just accustomed to that way of life, right?
The hamster wheel.
Yeah. Then you see other people. Like when we said we were moving to Florida, everyone thought we were insane. You're not going. I said, no, I'm going to try it. What are you going to do there?
But this was before everyone wanted to
Right.
move.
This was in, 2017. And the way we thought it was, let's just try it. I'm not going to the front lines of a war where I might get my head blown off. I'm going to a beautiful place. I'm going to buy a little spot for us and see what happens. And I remember my son was 13. I said, Pete, if we hate it, we'll just pack up the car and go home.
Exactly.
So now that I've lived this lifestyle, I wish I could let everyone know what it's like.
It
'Cause
seems like we wasted time in Canada when we could have been here enjoying.
Yeah, my one regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
Well, as
But
they always say, right? The best time was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
yeah,
Right.
that's
right?
true.
And for me, I think one of the big things too to talk about a great incentive is, you can trade snow shoveling for sand shoveling on a beach.
Yes.
At our place, we live 15 minutes north of Aurelia, and there's 4 feet of snow on the ground right now. Where we are here, there's no snow.
Right.
I mean,
And
there's no comparison to the lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think the best thing is you guys did it yourself. So you know what it's like, the aches and pains, right?
Yes.
Like last year we moved, and I said a realtor every once in a while needs to pack up and move so that you can feel what your clients feel, right? So I think that's a real bonus that you guys did it yourself.
Yes, and when we did it, we didn't know anybody who had done it. We found an attorney who was useless. Like I literally couldn't get an email back from him for 3 weeks. And we were just kind of left to ourselves. So we figured it all out. And then when Mena had the idea to open the firm, she said, Mom, we can do such a better job.
Yep.
And so that's why we're the one-stop shop. Like literally, I have clients. I'll give you an example. 2 days ago, a client emailed me. I need to buy a car in South Florida. I said, okay. Connected him with a friend of ours who's also a client. He has a dealership in Florida and one in Toronto. I know that he's going to take good care of him. So little things like that, we're always making those connections. And we've got healthcare down packed. We've got mortgages. We've got real estate. We've got law. Like everything you need is here.
Yeah.
So we can basically hold your hand. I wish. Imagine how much easier it would have been.
So much easier.
So much easier. But
So-
in a way, it's good we went through those.
Yeah,
Because
we
we figured
went
out-
over the speed humps, and now we know exactly what you're going to go through when you're making the move.
Exactly.
So helps our clients live a better life for sure.
Well, and you're helping one family at a time do it right the first time, right?
Right.
That's always been my attitude, especially when people, in our business, we're commission based. People talk about money all the time. It's always commission objection. And, I always have had an attitude, cheap is always cheap the first time, right? And then when it goes wrong, it's not so cheap anymore. So, I have an affiliation and an appreciation for people that invest in their craft and their knowledge and the connections to get a job done right. While it may not be as cheap as the guy down the street that's working out of a back shed,
Right.
you're not going to be wondering, well, if I call that place or I go back, is that going to be there anymore, or is the line going to be disconnected? Whereas
Exactly.
you're here running as a business and you're helping people change their lives in great ways.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, one of the things that really sets us apart, and you said that before, is that we've been through it.
Yeah.
So we lived in Canada. We know what these people are going through. We know
Right.
what it feels like to pack up and go to a new country and not know where to start or what to do. So I think that's something really special that we've set up. And I think that's also something special that you guys have in that, like you said, you've moved yourselves. You're down here in Florida. You understood what it takes. And so I think that's the right team for someone really to have. There's a lot of attorneys out there, and I'm sure a lot of realtors as well. Like you said, they're just out there for a quick buck.
Yeah.
But when you truly care about someone and their family, it makes all the difference.
Yeah. And it'll show through. That's
Yeah.
most
You
definite.
can't
It'll-
fake it.
No, you can't.
Well,
Not
and
at
even
all.
for us, we had to go through, we were already down a pathway of doing certain things on our own before we had discovered the both of you. And, we were fortunate that we didn't really do anything wrong, but we had to invest a lot more time than we otherwise could have had we have just hired you and stayed doing what we're best at. And that's, our real estate careers, and not messing around with, as you know, and you're going to talk about this big bubble of, immigration relocation. If you're taking it on as an individual, it can be quite an overwhelming, elongated process, and done wrong. As I'm sure you're going to expand upon, immigration's not so kind when you don't do it right and you're doing it on your own.
A lot of money and time wasted for sure.
Right.
And there's also immigration consultants out there that we've had a couple clients who've hired immigration consultants, paid them, and then they disappeared. So what people have to keep in mind is when you're hiring an attorney, such as Mena, she's regulated and she's a upstanding member of the Florida Bar. So that brings a lot of things, a lot of protection to you, the client, because there's insurances in place. If an attorney does something wrong, you can go to the bar to say, this, I wasn't treated properly. So it's a whole different level of service and a level of experience that people need to really understand. I mean, if you're gonna make this massive move and you're going to select someone who's gonna charge you $1,000 less, but doesn't have the reputation or isn't registered, or I feel sorry, because it's not, you're not buying a toaster oven. You're buying into a service that's going to be there to support you, to help you. And a lot of the things that we do for our clients are huge money saving opportunities.
Yes.
So we talked about the conversion. So you can go to the bank, they take their 2, 3, 4 points. You can go to money exchange houses, and then we've discovered an incredible way to exchange money. It's worth it if you're doing, let's say you're selling a house and you put $1 million somewhere. We can save you probably 4 or 5% with the way that we've been instructed to do it. So on $1 million, that's $40,000-$50,000 in savings just on that
We
one.
paid for ourselves 10 times over, pretty much.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Sometimes I've had people in the office, I said, you're going to want to pay me more when we're done. They're like, why?
And
I'm
you'll
gonna,
still have enough money left over to take a cruise.
yeah, I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to give you a secret that took me 2 years and tens of thousands of dollars in mistakes to figure out.
Right.
And so there's things like that that are,
And now you're sharing it with everybody, so that's
well, I
amazing.
only share it with our clients.
Well,
I got to keep it special, right?
right.
100%.
I
You gotta
can't let
keep
the
the
whole
secret
world.
sauce secret.
That's right. What's in the Big Mac sauce? No, which one was? KFC.
Right.
The secret
secret
ingredients in.
Right.
Anyway, so little things like that really help out quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Okay,
We'll
so
call you Colonel Rocky,
I like it.
right?
I like it. I have a hat, a captain's hat. So when we first moved down here, I'm like, I want to be a boater. And I didn't want to buy a boat. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So we joined a boat club. There was an older guy there. I said, listen, can you get me a captain's hat? He said, absolutely. So we joined the boat club. And on the first day when I got there, he had my captain's hat. I felt like Captain Stubing from the Love Boat. I actually have pictures of that. We'll make sure to put it up.
yeah, we'll have to put the picture in the podcast. For
Yeah,
sure.
and that started our first boating adventure, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, which is a great point to touch on, really quickly, because that's something you can't do economically even in Ontario, right? You can rent boats, however, you definitely have to have a boating license, operator's license, and excuse me, it's quite expensive there, whereas here, a lot of the boat clubs that you can actually join, we have friends up in Tampa St. Pete's, he pays $800 a month, 20 different boats he can choose
All you
from.
can boat.
Yeah.
It's
all you
fueled
can
up.
vote. So
He
cool.
does
Yeah.
whatever he does, doesn't have to clean it. It's
Nothing.
just brings it back. I'll take another boat tomorrow, right? So
I think
for
we were
me,
paying $500 a month. It was great.
Yeah.
right, and it's up and down depending on where you go, but I think that's great value where I don't have to worry about it. Okay, I damaged the prop, I busted a transmission in the boat, anything
Yeah.
like that. It's not your problem. You just pick a nice boat, go for a nice sunny drive
you
in the
go.
sun, and bring
Drop
back.
it off and get out.
I
Yeah.
was listening to Canadian news this morning, and they're like, right now is the Toronto indoor boat show.
Yeah, the boat show.
And they're like, the biggest indoor boat show in the world. I'm thinking, oh, God.
Indoor.
Indoor. Well, what are you going to do, put on Frozen Lake Ontario? But
Yeah.
have you ever been to the Fort Lauderdale
Spectacular.
boat show? It's the biggest boat show in the world.
Oh,
We're
wow.
talking, yeah.
And
And
it's not
water.
indoor.
No, It's outdoor. We're talking like mega yachts, and it's a whole week of festivities and festivals, and all the boating people are in town. It's kind of cool. It's a cool venue.
Oh, wow. That's exciting, especially for a whole week. Wow.
Yeah, it brings in, the businesses in town love it because
Yeah.
there's people from all over the world coming to see it.
Yeah.
There's always something going on down here. I mean, you can
100%.
get as involved as you want. You can have as much fun as you want. You can also relax and chill if that's what you're looking for too, which is what I love.
So let's talk about day one, which is going to start with you because you're the realtor up north. So let's start with you. I come to you. Where do I start? What do we do? How can you help me over there? And then we'll get into how do we help them when they're down here.
Well, that's a great question. We'll talk really age dependent on this one. For people our age that are in their 50s and 60s, possibly older, that are saying, okay, we've lived our life here. We have a great asset. We, potentially have a house that's paid for, could be worth $1 to $3, $5 million. I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to the GTA. But on average, $2 million home, and you're like, I've fallen out of love with it, and I want a different lifestyle. So. Often a lot of people come to us not sure where to start, what to do, who to trust. And we, are known for being diversified in what we do, that we do help a lot of downsizers, either, in the GTA or in particular that are looking at secondary properties or expatriating altogether, right? They want to possibly leave Canada for a multitude of reasons. But usually it's to get value in their life, and that is to not have to deal with winter anymore, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So, what that looks like for us is we typically get involved in conversation, assess the value of their house, assess whether or not they've got any liabilities against the property, such as a mortgage, and if so, we start to work on a net end of what a sale looks like for them. And if they're talking to us about moving into the U.S. markets, we'll talk about Florida, but it can be anywhere in the U.S. But
Right.
Florida's usually the most direct shot for most Canadians or Ontarians, which is a good thing about Florida because predominantly
Right.
it's condos and, single floor, right? There's not as many two-story here, unless that's what you want. But, the majority of people are going for quality of life. And that is easy to find here, and it's in a great abundance, and it's at every price point, right? We've found, even in Florida, depending on how you buy, you can buy in the low end where you possibly are into a land lease and own the asset, but have leased land to fully detached or a semi, something of that.
What do you think that starts at? Like,
So-
what can I get in for?
Yeah, it's a great question. Depending on where you're looking to go, if you were going to get into a land lease type situation, bottom line, if you want to do a little bit of work, you can get in 60 to 80,000.
Wow.
You want something turnkey where you're, I just want to go golf and swim and, play cards, whatever. Probably a good safe number is between 160 and 200, and
Very
obviously higher.
affordable.
Right. And that's USD. So, and then if you get into the whole detached structure, it really depends on where you're looking in Florida. The more you get into the more populated areas like South Florida, the numbers go up just by sheer value of, there's less inventory, more people, and more demand. And, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit, but I pulled inventory from the Gulf side as well as in the the Gulf side, Cape Coral, and also over here in Port St. Lucie, which is, for anybody who doesn't know where that is, it's between where we are in Fort Lauderdale and Cocoa Beach. So it's, you're right in the mix of really having good things to do in North and South Florida on the Atlantic side, and similarly with Cape Coral on the Gulf side. And when you get into detached, really depending on what you're wanting to do, but I took some average houses, so 4-bedroom in the 2,000 square foot range on canals in both cases. So you've got water right behind you, both with pools, lanais, so you've got everything you want. In organized communities, one is an HOA tied community, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The other one's not. And they were both priced in around the 500 range, one at 510, one at 530.
Also very affordable
Right.
when you're comparing to the prices up north.
Well, and we pulled a property in Ontario, which was a small bungalow, about 40 years old, that sold recently at 1.2 million. Now, it was upgraded on the inside, but single car garage, small house, half the size almost of what we're talking about in exchange for here in Florida. So, and the big differential in price, 1.2 Canadian versus say 500 US. And, for anybody wondering what 500 US looks like, you have to right now look at a factor exchange rate of about $1.48 on average. Right? It'll go up, but it'll go down.
Yeah, and we picked a house that was about 1,100 square feet, but up in Canada, we have basements, so
Right.
you do get that extra square footage and the potential to put a bedroom down there and extra living space.
I don't want to live in a basement.
Yeah, me
Right?
neither.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't want, or especially when they get older, they don't want to go down into the basement because they can't do the stairs anymore. That's why, buying a house.
I'd rather be on the beach.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And now they call you Rocky.
Well, Gary and Gina call me and they say, I have this wonderful client who's downsizing. We're selling their home and you guys take it from here, right? That's usually what happens. So what do? We talk with the family, and the best thing is we strategize on different options. And once we've had a thorough discussion as to what option best suits their needs, then we move forward with that option, onboarding the family. Onboarding is us basically taking care of them, introducing them to the next steps, providing them with all the information that they need to get started. If they're doing an E2 visa, which is a very popular visa, that's centered around opening a business or buying a business. So they may need assistance with a commercial broker who's going to help them find a space, or a business broker to help them buy a business. So we basically assess and connect. So you need to buy a business, Bill's going to take care of you. You need to get a space. How does it look like? What does your startup business look like? We get involved in that as well, because we're basically like personal trainers. We don't want you to go out there and make a mistake that's going to cost you time and money.
Right.
So oftentimes clients will put it all together and send it to us. This is what I'm looking to do. What do you think? And then we'll give our input. Same thing if they're buying a business. This is the business I'm looking at. Will this qualify for E2? Yes, no, maybe if we make a few tweaks. Through the business side of the law firm as well, we can assist with reviewing any types of contracts, leases, help in negotiation. You're not going to mess with my people. We're here to take care of our clients.
Not to mention the asset protection.
Right. And then, you're moving to a new country, and so your documents in Canada are not going to work for the most part. So you need to protect your property. For example, you own a piece of real estate, and because you're not a U.S. citizen or a green card holder right away, that property should never be in your personal name, because if something happens, a car accident, somebody slips at your place.
Very easy in America.
Yeah. Then they can sue you, and if that asset isn't protected, guess what? They can go after it. So we work with a cross-border CPA. That's wonderful. They have offices in Canada and the U.S., and they've really become a part of our strategy, because depending on what you want to do, like, are you a snowbird and you just want to spend 6 months here? Or are you looking to make this your place of residence? They will guide you in terms of, structuring and setting it all up. And then we take it from there and make sure that the tax decisions that have been made. And then we just move you along all the way through to the end. You need help with schooling questions or healthcare or anything that you might come to mind. I need to buy a car. We can kind of point you in the right direction to help you with that. Manna, why don't you tell us about the different visas, and from a legal standpoint, what can a Canadian do?
Sure. So you're Canadian. You're ready to make the move. The first step would be to either book a 20-minute free call with our team, so they can go over your scenario. Everyone's, unique, specific, in that they might need something different, or they might qualify for something different. So you don't know that until you talk to us. So go ahead and book the free 20-minute initial call. If that's not enough for you and you really want to talk to me, which I don't blame you, then you can book a 1-hour attorney consultation with me. And during that time, we'll go over all the specifics. I'll educate you on the law, which I'm going to get into. And we'll talk about your specific case and how it applies to you, little tips and tricks and things that we can do to make your life easier on your move to the U.S. So let's talk about the first most common visa, which is the E2 visa. E2 is an investor visa. There's 3 general requirements. The first is a substantial investment, which is typically $80,000 to $100,000 US. The second is that the funds need to be at risk, meaning that you're taking the $80,000 to $100,000 and you're actually investing them. So having them in a bank account or not spent yet isn't going to qualify you for the visa. So you actually have to go out. If it's a startup, You have to incur expenses and show me the invoices and receipts of what you've paid for and what you've set up. Reasonable business expenses. Like, don't go to Dunkin', and buy 400 coffees and try to tell us it's a business expense.
We had somebody do that.
We did. The third is source of funds. So they want to know that you got the funds from a legitimate source. So you'd have to show us, that the funds are either in your bank account and where they came from. Maybe you sold a property with these guys, or maybe you've had life savings that you're going to use towards this, or an inheritance. Whatever it may be, we have to show where it came from.
It can be a gift, right, Mena?
It can be a gift. So it can also be a home equity line of credit if you haven't sold yet.
Right.
A lot of people are in that transitionary phase. So the beauty of E2, there's a few perks, and I'm also going to talk about the difference between E2 and a permanent residency. A lot of people ask me, what's the difference? Is green card the same as permanent residency? So we'll get into that. But the perks are that as the principal applicant, you can operate your business. You can live in the United States for the initial 5 years. You can be on payroll for your business. You can grow your business. Your spouse, who comes in on an E2 spousal visa, can work anywhere in the United States for any employer, which is very freeing. So you may strategize as to who's going to own the business, who's going to be the spouse for that reason. And then your children under the age of 21 can come with you and go to school. Now, the visa is good for the first 5 years, and then you have to show that there's been profitability and that you've hired at least one full-time American employee, and you'll be able to renew that visa for increments of 2 years thereafter. So it's a wonderful visa. We came down on E2s ourselves. We've been through the interview process. We'll prepare you for that. There will be no guessing on your end as to what you have to say or what you have to do. We guide you along the way. You get a dedicated case manager. You get me. You get Rocky.
You get the rock.
You get the rock. Can you smell what the rock's cooking?
Uh-huh.
So E2 is the most popular. The investment is lower than some other visas that allow you permanent residency. So let's get a little bit into that. You want to tell them about EB5 and your experience with that?
Yeah, but before we go on, there's something really important that we should touch on.
Sure.
What about if my sister and I want to buy a business together for E2?
Oh, yes, that's totally possible. So one of the requirements for E2 is that you own at least 50% of the business. So let's say you and your sister Carm want to come,
my sister Carm.
You and Carm want to come down to the United States together. You want your families to benefit from that visa. You would have to invest 80 to 100, and so would Carm.
Okay.
You would own 50, she would own 50. We could bring both families down that way. And another cool thing, maybe you guys didn't know this either, is that if you're Canadian and you get an E2, you can hire other Canadians who are going to be in a supervisory managerial role to come down on an E2 as well and work for your E2 business. And the process is very simple. They don't have to make an investment. They have to be qualified, of course, for that role. But a lot of Canadians love that as well.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing about that too is, let's say we have some clients who have businesses in Canada and they're opening the same type of business here in Florida, and they don't want to live here. They want to go back and forth, which is great. You're not required to live here on an E2. And what they do is they hire some of their key people from Canada, move them down to Florida to run the operation here, because they know them. Maybe they've been with the company for a number of years. And so that you're allowed to bring someone from your home country as an employee, which is great because it can help with the transitionary time.
And a lot of people ask me, hey, I have a son or a daughter and they're 25 and they don't qualify as my dependent anymore because they're over the age of 21, but they have experience in marketing or they have experience in management. Can I bring them down? Yes, absolutely. The only thing to consider with that is we actually have to really show that there's a bit of a bias, of course, because it's your relative. So we have to show that they are really qualified for the role. If we can do that, you can bring them down as your employee as well.
And then the employee's spouse gets an open work permit. They can bring their kids down. So it's pretty cool. It really allows them some flexibility.
I go for E2.
Yes.
That's cool. Fantastic. I'm here, loving it. Lifestyle's amazing. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go for the interview to renew in 5 years.
Right.
I want to live here. I want to become American. So what can we do?
Well, that's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you. Tell your story, girlfriend.
So we came down here and we kept a house in Canada and kept all of our winter gear there. All of our coats, ski boots, you name it. Kept a car just in case,
Right.
And then the first year we would go back for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then slowly nobody wanted to go anymore. So we're like, okay, then COVID hit, and it's like, this is, we're just not going. So at that point, we were in a few years, loving every minute of it. Kids, nobody wanted to go back.
Loving every minute of it.
Loving it.
Loving every minute of it.
Yeah, so at that point, we decided as a family to pursue the EB-5 route. They take your money, they give you a green card.
How do they do that?
You lend it to them so they can build infrastructure all across the United
What's
States.
infrastructure?
Buildings, usually.
So give me an example of what that might look like.
Okay, when
Real life.
I did mine, it was a building that was being built in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
The shovels were already in the ground, which I liked because it wasn't just on paper. And the family that was building, the developers, they were a billionaire family. They'd basically built up the whole Seattle waterfront. And the family personally guaranteed my loan.
Why do I care about that?
Because if the project goes tits up, can I say that? No.
Sure.
Legally?
Yes,
Sure.
you could legally say that. Why not?
If the project collapses, then I have security.
Okay, so walk me through how this works. I come to you, I'm like, Rocky, I want to invest my $800K to get a green card. What's the first thing you're doing for me, and what can I expect?
So first thing that you need to do is you and your family need to meet with an EB-5 broker. And the EB-5 broker will walk you through and present you with different projects, just like I went through. And then we have one broker that we're very fond of. Obviously, you can go to any broker you like. They will present you with the different projects, and every project has some differences in it. How long is your money out? How quickly will you get your green card? Like if you invest in a rural project, you're going to get your green card in under a year. If you invest in something different, so it really depends on what you and your family are looking for. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not speed, it's more security, Sometimes you want to wait in Canada. You're not quite ready to make the move, so you do it consular.
Can I wait in the United States?
Absolutely. So this happened when I did my EB-5. There was no adjustment of status, but in 2022, they put in the Integrity Act, which changed a lot of things. The EB-5 is a wonderful vehicle right now. Adjustment of status means you can file from the United States. We tell the government, this family has filed, here's all their paperwork, their petition. They're here, they want to remain in the U.S. We file advance parole document, and we file a work permit document. And what that means is within 3 to 6 months, which is the typical processing time, you and your family and any kids under 21 would get an open work permit. You guys can go do whatever you want. And you would also get a travel document. Because remember, we told the government you're here. If you leave, then it's kind of counterproductive to what we told them. So you have to get an advance parole document, which allows you to travel in and out of the U.S. So you're essentially living here as if you are on a green card, just waiting for the green card to arrive. And you could be a permanent resident or green card holder for 5 years, and then you can file for U.S. citizenship.
And let's talk a little bit about the difference, because we've had some people not understand really what's the difference between me being on an E2, non-immigrant visa, as opposed to permanent residency / green card. It's the same thing. What's the difference?
So on an E2 visa, you have legal status. You can come and go out of the country. The status is limited. There's a few things you can't do. So then the next step is permanent residency, which allows you to do a few other things. You still can't vote, but you're considered a permanent resident. And then if you become a citizen, then the U.S. is stuck with you. So if you're a permanent resident and you do something criminal, they could potentially send you home. If you do that same criminal act, for example, and you're a U.S. citizen, you're staying in the U.S.
Yeah.
So that it just changes from engagement to marriage.
I think the main thing that people love about going, and why they want to go from E2 to permanent residency is that they don't have to keep renewing the visa. Because remember, after the first 5 years, you've got to renew every 2 years. You have to keep that business open. Your kids, if they turn, if they turn over the age of 21, then they fall off. They have to do their own visa. So for the long run, you want to become a permanent resident. Initially, if you're looking to get your feet wet, you're not sure if this is the place for you yet, which it's going to be, trust me, then E2 is a good option.
We have a lot of clients who start on the E2, just like I did. They want to kind of get their feet wet and see what's going on. And they know that the EB5 is in the future, especially they look at the age of their kids and they're like, okay, I got 10 years, I got 6 years. They're trying to do it within that period of time. We also see people coming on an E2 where the spouse who has an open work permit potentially gets a job, employer loves them and sponsors them. We've seen a lot of marriage-based things happening. So there are other options.
So Rocky, tell us about the risk involved with EB5. How can I make sure that I'm going to get my money back after the 3 to 4 years on the project?
Okay, so if that project has $40 million in equity, it's just like your house. Okay, so your house is worth $1 million and you have a mortgage for $600,000. You have $400,000 of equity if you sold your house. So if I come along and give you a second mortgage, for example, and I give you $100,000, I can register it against the house, and now you have $300,000 in equity. So if something were to happen, you couldn't pay the mortgage, we could take it over, and my $100,000 that I put in is covered by the equity in the property. So the same thing happens with a regional center project. So if the project is worth $100 million and there's $40 million in equity, that means if they sold that project tomorrow, the bank would take their $60 million and the developer would be left with his $40 million. When you come along as an EB5 investor, you get to register a mortgage as if you're registering a mortgage on that development. There's real estate, there's something there that you can secure against. If for some reason that project doesn't go well and it collapses, your funds are protected because of the 40% equity that's in the project.
What are we paying for healthcare in Ontario? You make $100,000. What are you paying for healthcare?
$18,000.
You're paying $18,000 a year.
Yes.
What are you paying in Florida? You're my age or your age. Let's use your age. What are you paying in Florida?
For healthcare?
Yeah, you have a fantastic plan. Everything's covered. You don't have to worry about anything. What's the cost to you?
Well, it depends. So a lot of people don't know that there's the marketplace and that the government will subsidize your healthcare based on your income.
What do you pay?
I have a really good plan because I'm a bit of a diva and I want everything covered. And I pay $600 a month.
Okay, and tell me about that. So we're going this afternoon to see a specialist, right? How long did it take you to get that appointment?
2 days.
Wow.
2 days.
Yeah, I had hip pain about 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, I got to go take a look. Maybe I need a cortisone shot. And I find a walk-in specialist who specializes in, can't remember the name. Doesn't matter. 9 o'clock in the morning, I walk in. By 10:30, he's x-rayed me, done everything, and sent me on my way.
Right. How long do you think that would have taken in Ontario?
Well, first,
You're
Months.
lucky.
Months.
Yeah, months.
18
But
months.
even to just get through, so if you went to a hospital,
yeah.
you'd be 5, 6, 10 hours just to be seen by a doctor. And if you have a private practice that you can possibly buy into, it's going to cost a fortune. But otherwise, as you said, could be
Right.
anywhere from 2 to 6 months to be able to see a certain type of specialist depending on your complications.
Guys, I drove into the hospital because I had to go for a test about 6 months ago. And if someone was watching me, they would have thought I was insane. I pull in, I start laughing like hysterically. The hospital has complimentary valet parking.
Yes.
Can you imagine? The nice thing about the healthcare too is every year you renew it. So when you renew it, you pick a plan. So let's say this year I get diagnosed with diabetes. So then next year's plan, I make sure that diabetic coverage is top notch.
Right.
And they
can't block you
from pre-existing.
Yeah.
Can't.
Or raise the amount you're paying or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can cater it to what you like, so it's unheard of, especially when you're used to back home.
I'm looking at the news and it's like, America, guns, guns, guns. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it's fabulous.
And why would you want to own it? Why are you pro gun ownership?
Well, it makes everyone a lot nicer. So there's hardly any road rage down here.
Wow.
Somebody cuts you off, you're like, okay, maybe he's having a bad day. Let me just keep going. You got to have real guts to break into someone's house because
Everybody's got a gun. You don't know who does.
And you're allowed to use it.
You have the right to kill someone who enters your home
Well, and to touch
with the
on
intent to.
He's got a good.
to touch on that quickly, about a year and a half ago, home invasion in Mississauga, and son lives with his mother. He's a legal gun owner, and these guys break in, home invasion. He shoots and kills the people that broke in. He was up on murder charges. He's since had them rescinded because Canada, our citizens were up in arms. How is it you are in your own property, defending your property and your family? You're now charged with murder when somebody was trying to potentially kill you.
Right.
Versus here, that's one of the things that I have an appreciation for. Like even with our kids, they're like always saying, I'm worried about being in the streets there with people having guns where it's not so prevalent here. And I'm like, well, don't fool yourself. It's everywhere.
Right.
But to me, in my opinion, if SHIT is going down, I'd rather be somewhere where I know someone in the crowd has potentially got a gun versus waiting
defend.
for the cops to arrive.
Right.
And they're going to stop, the intruders, right? And
Right.
and that is often more the case, right? That somebody makes
Yeah.
crime short-lived here by virtue of what we live with and where we come from.
We've been here 8 years. We live in a beautiful community. I've never felt threatened. I've never seen someone pull out a gun. I've never been afraid.
Me neither.
And the lifestyle. There's people driving $100,000 cars left, right, and center like nothing. The homes are beautiful. Everything is well cared for. There's a huge police presence. So I've never really felt, the danger of the guns.
Well, and in Toronto now, you'd
Yeah.
be an absolute target if you were
Yeah,
driving a
I
luxury
know.
vehicle. You're getting yanked
Right.
out of your vehicles.
Not here.
Well,
A
it
lot
all
of-
started with, stealing them in your driveway, to then stealing them from your garage, to you can just pull up to a stop sign. Someone's going to come up with you with a gun and tell you, get out,
Right.
and they just take it.
So where would
guess
you
what?
rather be?
Right?
Well, guess what, Gina? If you had a gun on and that guy pulls up beside you, he's gonna think twice.
Exactly.
It won't happen.
Listen, I'm not a violent person, but you know what they say? I'd rather be judged by 12 than be carried by 6.
Mhm.
So I would never go out looking for it, but I feel good knowing if someone's gonna try something, Rocky's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give an exact comparison to, the life in Canada, the cost of living there. What is it going to cost me to purchase, to maintain that home, comparable to the United States?
Yeah, so great question. We've been practicing real estate in York Region above the GTA for roughly 14 years now. So your average home, for a detached, you're going to be anywhere from about 1.1 up to 2 million.
Yeah, so basically in Toronto, North Riverdale, the house is 251 Withrow Avenue. You can turn around and look it up yourself. Currently listed. It is a 2-story. It's listed for $2.199 or $2,199,000. It's a 2+1 bedroom, 3-bath home, right? The taxes on this home is $8,376 a year, right? And the lot is 19 by 126 feet.
That's tiny.
Bowling alley.
Bowling alley home, right? No garage, 2 parking. Like, can you guys imagine that? So you're just living in this tall house, no garage, and you will have a bowling alley for your driveway with just 2 spots to park.
And when your friends come to visit, they get a parking ticket almost every time.
Yeah, so if we can turn around now and compare to that, something that we've been looking at, for example, in West Rotunda, here's a house that we can look at.
25 degrees sunny in January. Okay.
So give me 1 second.
Yeah, on a $2 million property, your down payment's $400,000 right off the hop.
Right, and if you're in the GTA like this house, in the Toronto, confines, you're into double the land transfer tax because you're double hit.
Right.
If you
So
were
what are we
outside-
looking at on $2 million?
Oh gosh, you're probably into between $150,000 and $170,000 just
You're
in
kidding
land
me.
transfer. Oh yeah.
I know
Because
Toronto
it's
doubled it.
up, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow. So
Toronto's
just to
double.
get into the property, you're at $600,000
Yeah,
between closing costs and transfer.
wouldn't be unreasonable.
So now you've got a $1.4 million mortgage.
And no highways to travel around on.
Right. And at 4%, like you said, just an interest on $1,600,000, 4% of $1,000,000's 46 is, you're paying about $80,000 a year just in interest
Yeah.
on that loan without even knocking down any of the principal. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a serious six-figure income earner to be able to do that, right? Which is, something that's out of reach for a lot of people.
Okay, so now if we shift to Florida, we're looking at a beautiful community. You want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so West Rotunda is actually a really cool kind of organized community that we've been looking at ourselves, and we like it a lot because there's a lot of areas that you can go to for beaches, and then also West Rotunda itself is known to have its 5 golf courses right there. So the cool part about West Rotunda is you can either buy a property that's on their man-made canals, or you can back onto the golf course.
Okay.
So that's actually pretty cool. So here's a house that I found, built in 2024.
Brand
3
new.
bedroom, 2 bath, 1,600 square feet, $314,000.
Do I get a
Wow.
garage?
And you're going to get a
That's
2-car
half of your
garage.
down
Two-car
payment.
garage.
A 2-car garage built in 2024. The HOA fee, $10 a month.
Wow,
Can
they
we
really
afford
knocked
that?
it out of the park.
Yep, two-door, 2-car garage, and I mean, yeah, basically that's the way that house goes. Looking at the overall monthly payment, let me see, how much are they saying to have down here? 20% down, so that's $62,980.
You
A
can
lot
put
less,
that on a credit card.
right? Than what you needed there in the one that we found in the GTA, and your mortgage is going to be $1,800 a month.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so just imagine.
$1,800 on your mortgage. A
Imagine.
brand new home, beaches, canal.
Amenities.
And you know what? Those lots, typically in Florida, if you're on water, there's a premium. If you back onto a golf course, there's a premium. So if you went into a neighborhood where you were on a dry lot that you didn't have those things, you'd be even less.
Yeah, so that house in Toronto, 2.199. If you put a 20% down payment, $439,800,
Ouch.
right? You're going to have a mortgage of 1.759, interest rate 4.5. That's a 5-year fixed here in Canada. That'll be more in Ontario. Sorry, that's actually amortized over 30 years. Your monthly payment, $8,870.16.
Wow.
So think about it this way. Here's an incentive for what you have to put just to have the right to say that's my house that I live in that has a mortgage on it. You can buy cash in West Rotunda and not have to worry about
Buy
a mortgage.
2 of them.
Right?
I think 3.
Maybe even 3.
think
Maybe
3.
4.
And that doesn't even include your property tax of $433 a month.
I say you buy 3 of them. You live in one, you rent out the
Yeah.
others, and that's your happy hour
You
money.
live for free.
You know, the other thing too that's shocking and we're not used to is in Ontario, you literally have the GTA.
Yeah.
Whereas here, there's so many cities all over the state. Water, dry, Gulf, Atlantic, I mean, you name it, whatever it is you're looking for is out there. Different styles of housing, 55 plus communities. Downtown Miami, if you want to party all day long. The options are just endless.
Well,
Yeah.
and to your point, you are from that particular area just about 2.5 hours into Orlando. So let's just say you're grandma and grandpa and you want that sanctity of having the golf course community and beaches right there. But the kids come down and they want to go to Disney. You're literally a 2.5 hour drive away. And the point I bring this up too is because if you own that same type of house in Orlando, you're probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood for a similar house between $500,000 and $700,000. So you're buying a lot of value, and if you're only going to visit Disney maybe once or twice a year, I'd rather give the distance value than, convenience.
Yeah, but even if it's a younger family and they want to live in Orlando, which is a pretty big city, maybe their parents are out where you're talking about, $500,000 for a nice brand new family home
Doesn't exist in
Doesn't
Canada.
exist. I mean, you'd have to go to Nunavut.
Well, and I think, the point too, especially if you're somebody that's coming to stay permanently and you've got kids and you know this yourself, better options in terms of schools and communities and organized communities versus what we have in the GTA. So I think that's really important to add to the value component, even if you're having to buy up real estate a little bit to get into a really good neighborhood, that you're still going to be well ahead of the game with opportunity and education.
I'm Gina,
I'm Gary
and we're the Capstone Real Estate Group.
with eXp Realty.
Yeah, so if you're looking to sell in Canada and then you're looking to buy in the U.S., give us a call because we've got the connection called the SWAT team. It's going to help you do this right.
And between ourselves and Rocky and Mena, we're the bridge across from Canada to the U.S.
I'm Mena, this is my mom Rocky, and we're the mother-daughter duo at Maimone Legal. We're here to take care of all your legal needs from immigration, estate planning, and business law. We've got you covered. Give us a call. Click on the link below. Don't be afraid to reach out. We love to chat.
Let our family take care of your family.